Well, the last time we ran the Crush was at the Street Stock Nationals. We unloaded from the trailer, parked it here in the shop. We've been working on Rachel's Camaro, getting it ready to race and everything. And so I had to order a few parts because I saw something on this Crush working through several days of racing at the Street Stock Nationals. We did a video every night, so if you're following along, you might have saw it as well. But I felt like that this car, the front end, we weren't getting enough movement, and the car wasn't working the way we wanted it to. And so I have went and got the parts, and we're going to go through and we're going to rebuild the front end of the car, make a few changes as far as where the roll center's at, going to change some spring rate, and overall try to take this car to that next level of speed that I need to find. I need another half a second on this car. Let's make some changes and make it happen. So y'all stick around. Let's get this front cap off. There's that side. I got them all. Yep, that's it. That's all it is to it. I've got a baseline measurement here that I want to get. So I've got my load stick here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to measure heim to heim, and then I'm going to turn around and measure and subtract this amount right here. So that's going to tell me what to pull the load stick to, where we can see how many pounds of load that this car was going to on the right front. So that tells me that the car is capable of at least holding that. So if I make changes to improve the car and everything, it may be able to hold more than that, but it will at least hold that. So that gives me a starting point for whatever I do. I change out the ball joints, I free things up, I change the springs, and I'm going to do all of that. But with all of those changes and everything, I know that I can at least come back to that number and expect the car to be able to get to that number. And so we've got us a baseline here before we start making any drastic changes, where hopefully we don't end up just out to lunch. And so like right now, I'm going to get my measurement here. Right now I'm 18 1/4, and my O-ring has been pushed down 3.5 inches. So 18 1/4 minus 3.5, 18 1/4 would be 15 1/4, and that'd be 14 3/4. I better write that down somewhere. So we're going to run our load stick down to 14 3/4, and that is going to be where this car was going to. We can see how many pounds that was that the car was able to hold. I hope that makes sense to y'all. So y'all know the routine on the load stick. We throw it on, get it where the heims aren't tight. I don't need the nuts, just need the... So yeah, so we throw it on and get it where it's loose in the heims, and then we hit 0, and then we just turn it and pull it down. That's all it is to it. Okay, so I got that in, and then right there, right there. We turn it on, we hit 0, we're going to pull this thing down to 14 3/4 inches. See, I already had to look. We'll see what it is. Oh, yeah, it's on 0. 0, 0, 0. At 14 3/4 inches, heim to heim, this car was holding 2,175 pounds of load in the right front. All right, so now I've got me a starting point. Regardless of what I do, when it's all said and done, I can go back to that with a different spring or whatever, and the car should work at least as good as it did before. If my changes are good, it should work better. So now we can back this bad boy back off. I got some changes that I've been contemplating and thinking about, but I kind of wanted to get the car kind of figured out before I did anything radical. So one of the things that I want to do is, I think I've got too much anti-dive on this right front. So I've got 4 degrees of anti-dive on this right front. And I like running 4-wheel brakes. Car's a lot more stable. Car's a lot safer to drive. Panic braking doesn't throw the car. You know, I'm a big advocate of trying to get the car set up right so you can use four-wheel brakes. And the 4 degrees of anti-dive, I think, is adding too much spring rate to my car. And if you've watched my videos where I was showing like the anti-dive when I did it, so anti-dive adds spring rate when you're on the brake because the brake is counteracting the twisting force in the spindle itself, and so that angle of anti-dive is actually making it press down, so it adds rate to the spring. And anti-dive, you know, it's not a bad thing, but it has to make sense, you know, and it has to work with your setup. And I think 4 is too much. And probably should have went ahead and got that loose first. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking instead of 4 degrees on the right front of anti-dive, I probably need to cut that back to 2 degrees. And then maybe go from 0 on the left front to 2 degrees pro dive the other way. Actually draw the left front down. And I think that would be a better solution. So there it goes. Sit you right there. That's ready. Clean that up with a brush, throw one in. So what are we putting back in its place? Well, I've got the ultra low friction. This is basically like your budget low friction ball joint. I think these are like 50 bucks a piece. This is basically about the cheapest one. This isn't a rebuildable one, but anyway, but it is low friction. When we say low friction, I mean, you can just look, yeah. I mean, it's definitely low friction. I went with the plus 1/2 inch, okay? You know, I had all the Moog stock stuff on here, and I've always run the stock stuff. I ran the stock stuff on the Camaro, and I've run this car, and I'm seeing a lot of guys that are running a lot softer springs. I'm seeing a lot of guys, I was at the Street Stock Nationals, there was a lot of guys that were running 650 and 700 and 800 pound springs on the right fronts, and, you know, they were beating the pants off me. And I think one of the things that's going on here is that, especially when you get into the softer rate springs, that how much friction and bind is in your joints becomes more important. I think it's more important to have a really front end that moves really easy in a car that you're down at 700 or 800 pound springs versus a car that's on 1,000 or 1,100 pound springs. It starts really showing up. It starts really making a difference when you've got some bind that is basically adding spring rate in weird ways to your car. It's like, I'm going to have to switch this out. I'm going to go all low friction. I'm going to have to make a change and see if it really does improve the car. I'm not 100% sold on it, but when I work the car, I mean, I really have a lot of resistance, you know, even with the spring out. When I'm sitting here and I'm working this up and down with the spring not in there, I mean, I'm having to sit here and pull like 50 pounds of pressure, you know, to move this, and it's the resistance in all these joints. So yeah, I'm kind of thinking, you know, there could be something to it, and I need to make the switch and see if it makes a difference. So that's why we're doing that. So I got all low resistance for the uppers and the lowers. The plus 1/2 inch right here, I am intentionally going to raise the roll center. All right, so I'm gonna draw this looking at the front of the car, like we were standing in front of the car. So I have got the passenger side tire, and I've got the driver's side tire. This is not gonna be to scale. We're gonna keep this real simple. We're just gonna say that our lower control arms are both level, okay? Keep it as simple as we can. So there's our lower control arm. So that's the inner bolt going through the frame. That is where the center of the ball joint is right there. And then we have got our, I'm gonna draw this, try to draw this as accurately as I can, even though it's a disaster, but anyway. All right, so then we're gonna do our upper ball joints. And you know, we've got angle running downhill. Oh, that's way off scale, but anyway. So that's our upper ball joints and they're running downhill. And right now, when we look at that, like when we do roll center, right now, that roll center, of course, these are both level, so it's real simple. So that roll center on this one runs across this way out. That roll center on that one, that line runs across that way. So that's a horizontal line. If they were angled, that line would have that angle. Then turn around, the line of that upper and the line of that upper, right? Okay, so there's my instant center. There's my instant center right there. And then turn around and we say from the contact patch, okay, that point right there, from that tire back to that point, and from that tire right there back to that point. So the two control arms come to a point and then the tire makes a point there. That line from tire to the point and that line tire to the point, there's our roll center right there. Where those two lines from the tire up to the intersection of the control arms, that intersection of those two, that's your roll center, okay? So, now that we know that, that was very brief. Trust me, the video we did on it, man, we like laid it out and went all through it. But anyway, that's very brief. What did we do? We took, ooh, there ain't no juice in that marker. Let's see if I can get a different color one here. Right, so we took this spindle right here and we went up a ½ inch, okay? So we went up a ½ inch on that one and we went up a ½ inch on that one, right? Now, the bottom of the car stayed the same as far as the lower control arms, right? But the tire and the upper ball joint location, because the spindle itself, see, I was longer right here, so this went up a ½ inch. So now this pickup point up here, this pickup point moved up a ½ inch right there. So now, that's my line. Same deal here. Both, so I gained angle in my upper control arms. So what I've done here is now, that line to that instant center has changed. Now, instead of being there, now that line is here. It's right there. See, it moved back. Now look at this one. Now this one, instead of being there, that line has moved back to here. So now, if I draw a line, right? If I draw a line from the tire back, right? And then turn around and I draw a line. Boy, this is getting really cheesy now. If I draw a line back to this tire right here, this roll center in the center has moved up. I raised the roll center in the car, okay? So that's what that did, but it did it in a way like it's letting me lower the car overall. So it's like I have lowered the center of gravity in relationship to the roll center, okay? Now, in real world, what does that do? Well, what it's going to do is it's going to make my camber and caster change more as this car goes through compression. When I raise that roll center up, it's like instead of the car compressing on the right front, you know, and the wheel just going straight up, the roll center being up means the car like rolls more, you know. And in real terms, what that means is you still just see the car compress, but it's like that this tire is going to like go in a circle around, you know, in a circle around the car more pronounced, because like where that tire is rolling around the center of the car, when I raise that up, that becomes more pronounced. That's a very oversimplified way of describing it, but it's actually going to give me more camber and caster action while letting me, you know, sit the front of the car down, you know, about a ½ inch and still be at the same ride heights across my control arms. All right. And so like, as far as like how that affects action, it is going to slow the car down as far as how easily it rolls over, because I'm lowering the car. So I'm lowering the center of gravity. So now the car doesn't roll as easy. But remember, I'm going down on spring rate. I'm going to go down to a 750 on the right front. And so the combination of the two, I'm somewhat trying to balance that out, because I'm going all low friction. I'm going down on spring rate on the right front, but then I'm raising the roll center and lowering the car overall to compensate for some of that. It's where my head's at. It's what I feel like I need to do. And I'm not saying it's the exact right thing to do, but I'm not happy with where this car's at on its front end. And if I make minor adjustments, I'm not going to get there. We're going to have to swing bigger, where we don't just like go through the entire season and not get the car to the front. And so that's what I'm doing, and that's what it actually does to the car from a geometry standpoint. I hope that was not horribly confusing. Leave me a comment. Let me know. I'm trying here, folks. Buddy, that's cherry right there. All right. Let's see if I can't ease you up in there right quick. Oh yeah, you're there. And I am going to quench this. I'm putting a little bit of quench on that, a little bit of water there. You're like, well, Jason, why am I quenching that? Well, and y'all, there's a lot of y'all be like, that's not the right way to do that, blah, 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 blah. No, I'm fine with it. But I'm making that metal shrink. I want it to be really tight on that ball joint, so it's all going like that right there, grabbing it up, and then go ahead and I'm just going to keep that heat from all soaking through that ball joint. I don't know how that ball joint's made. It's got a really big, thick forged piece of steel there that the ball is in, but in case there's only a liner in it that's plastic or anything like that going on, I'll go ahead and quench it and just keep it from, because it would slowly warm up, and you know, maybe it gets it too hot or something. Very doubtful as thick as that steel is, but just go ahead and quench it like this. Shrink that up. And I still put 2 spot welds opposite of each other on these things. Just, it's like insurance, because I just do this hack that's really quick for me to swap one out. So I'll just put a spot on each side, and I try to make the spot small enough where I can just cut it out really easy. And that's just safety. For that, but it's not going anywhere. You got to remember the spring and all that, that's keeping all that in there. Okay, so this anti-dive is next. So it really, the car's not on a jig, the car's not sitting level. It really doesn't matter, because I know that that's 4 degrees of anti-dive. So I'm just going to put my digital level on it and see, like right now, when I put my digital level on it, yeah, it's reading 7.5. And I just know that I need to take 7.5 and adjust it to 5.5. And I am just going to slot the hole. And I'm going to slot the hole, and I'm going to drop the front in order to get that 2 degrees change. And then I'm just going to weld a washer on this outside to lock it in. It's that simple. That's all I'm going to do to change the anti-dive on this. Next car I build, I'll just go on and tell y'all, on the next car I build, I'm probably going to get the Joe's Racing products, and I am going to put the brackets on here that use the slugs, you know, just so that I can really start playing around with the anti-dive more in order to see how it affects the car and be able to change according to track conditions. I think that's an advantage, being able to change your anti-dive, because you literally are influencing like spring rate on the right front and the left front on entry. When you're on the brake, you can use your anti-dive on the front to like tune the car. I do think there's an advantage to that now I'm starting to understand. So yeah, on my next build, I'm going to put some that use a slug insert that'll move that around. But for this one, let's get this off. Let's slot that hole, put it back, weld a washer on, and move on. Well, that's it right there. Okay, so I got it. So I went from 7.5 to 5.5. But you gotta remember, the car is not sitting level. So since I know that was fixed at 4, that made it 2. Woo, them are sharp little old slivers. Anyway, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take one of these little grade 8 washers and I'm gonna put on there, and I'm gonna weld that washer up on this back side that's not where my shims go. And then that will be my way of fixing that to make sure that it doesn't move up and down in the slot. Super simple. Like I said, it's a good solution for if you don't have the slugs, but the slugs, you know, that you put into slots that let you adjust it, probably by far more superior than this. I ain't gonna go crazy doing this in case I want to change it. That should be enough. Well, put a little more right there. That's enough. Quit while you're ahead, right? Right. So I've replaced that control arm here, put a little bit more caster in the car. Of course, I'll have to go back through the setup when it's on the ground. And what I replaced, this was an 8 1/4. I put an 8 1/4 back on it. I think that's the right upper control arm for me. That's a K6136, which is the truck ball joint. So this is taller than stock for what was on this car anyway. It's like 3/4 of an inch taller just by buying a 6136. And we're going to put that back on. So I'm keeping the same. This is going to be a spare, so I can put that right back on there if I need to. But I went with the AFCO, which low friction, which again, this was the lowest cost entry level for low friction. So I got the AFCO low friction ball joint right there in the 6136. And I think they've got this in all the different types of ball joints. But same deal, moves super easy. So I'm going to do it the same way. That up there, put it in. I've got these ready. Of course, I've got to redo my bump because, you know, my steering arm right here, I've raised it up a 1/2 inch. Well, also when I looked at my idler arm compared to my steering sector pitman arm, they were out of alignment with each other, and I ended up dropping my idler arm by about 1/4 inch and lining them up. And I'm looking at it overall, and I've got to rerun my bump. So I don't know where my bump will be, so I got to figure it out again. Now, I'm not going to do bump fully in this video. I'm going to show it and everything, but I'm going to put a link here and check that out. I've got a bump steer video where I show like building a bump steer gauge from scratch, and like on the whiteboard, like the geometry and how it works, and like when do you add more spacers or take spacers away, and like how to do it and how to read it. And we went through and did the bump on this car when it was new. So please go check that out. It's a good video. All right, so we're gonna go through. I've got the center link off of it right now over here on the shop table, going through and rebuilding it. So let's go check that out. All right, so I'm kind of trying to get back to square one. And so I've got a brand new center link here, new inner tie rod ends. I'm putting everything on new, and that way I can also build me a complete replacement that I can like put in the trailer. And so if I wreck anything, I've got everything I need to be able to put it back together like at the track if I have to do that. Especially if I'm in a multi-day show. We got another big show we're going to try to go to this fall. And so like really need to have like everything for the front end, like all the uppers, all the lowers. So like I'm putting all these new parts on, but at the same time I'm saving all my old parts so that I'll have like a backup system. So that's all we're doing, is just sitting here and taking it off one, putting it on the other, and we're going to turn around and I'm going to build all of this back out again in this old one. I'm probably going to have to get a couple new swedge tubes, and I've had a couple people ask me about this. This is a 73-77 chassis, And this part right here is like the Camaro. This thing is not the same end to end. It is 11/16 threads on one end, and it is 5/8 on the other. And that's different from a metric, y'all, so just be aware. Speedway Motors has got this part right here. I've had a couple people ask me about it that I have put the part number like in the descriptions and stuff. I'll try to put the part number in the description of this video as well, because they're the only ones that I found this tube. It's like, how long is this tube? This is the one. This is the one. It is, the tube itself is 9 inches long, and like I said, it is 11/16 on one end, and it is in its left-hand and right-hand threads, you know. But anyway, 11/16 on one end, 5/8 on the other. So little bit different, but that's what you've got to have for a Gen 2 Camaro or a 73, 77. And I don't know about the Chevelle. 68, 72 Chevelle, it may be this as well. But anyway, that's one you got to have, y'all. So I'm going to take and just swap all this out, set the same measurements. We're going to throw this up on there where that we can take and start running through that bump right quick and see what we need to do on spacers or moving anything further. All right, y'all, I've got the bump about as good as I'm going to be able to get it on this right front. I don't have my angles between my lower control arm and my steering arm here perfect. And so I am running into some progressive bump out when I get real deep in bump, but it's when I'm real deep. And I think overall I found the best compromise I can, because otherwise I'm not going to be racing this weekend, because I'm going to have to maybe move my height of my pitman arm and my idler arm much further than what I have in order to get a better solution. But like where I'm at right now, of course, like I'm at ride height, I'm actually pulled into it just a little bit. I pulled the chain just a little bit down to kind of show where the car was going to run. And like when I'm bumping up here from 0, the first inch, I actually bump in just a little bit. So like I bumped in 9 thousandths and then turned around, and then that second inch, you know, I am bumped back out by like 7 or 8 thousandths, like 8 thousandths bumped out right there, and then turn around, and then that third inch, now at that third inch, I actually bumped out, let's see, 265 and 300s, 35. So like I bumped out, like I'm bumped out 35 thousandths right now. So I bumped out about 25 thousandths in the third inch. And then in the fourth inch, I really start bumping out at that point. You know, so yeah, like 350 and 430, you know, so like another 80, and so like, you know, 50 thousandths and 80, like more like 35 or 40 thousandths of bump out in that fourth inch. So it is progressively, so like as the right front compresses, the first inch or two, I'm just right on it, and then in the third inch, I start bumping out, and then the fourth inch, I bump out quite a bit more. Bumping out is better than bumping in on the right front. And because I'm starting with it bumping in and then going to bump out, I know that I'm probably as good as I'm going to get. I maybe could make it bump in more initially so that I don't bump out as far out when I'm in full compression. But bumping in is a worse scenario on the right front than bumping out. I don't want to bump in on the right front. So I'm going to leave it alone, and probably then look at actually slotting the holes and maybe bending the pitman arm in the future, and see, I'm going to have to draw it back all out on the board and work through it in order to figure out exactly what I need to do to get those curves lined up better. And that's just from that half-inch ball joint extension on the bottom, changing my pickup points and stuff, because I had a better solution than this. And so that kind of messed it up. I knew it was going to mess it up. That's okay. We got to do something. Front end of the car's not working well enough, so we got to change some stuff. So I'm just going to run this back down to where it was. And I put the spring rubber in. So I put a softer spring rubber. This is like a 1-inch soft black rubber, because I'm going to set this thing to be at 2,100 pounds on that, with that rubber in there. That way, and I know, because I know 2,100 at full compression, that to me, that really just sounds right. And I want that to be with a rubber, where if I've got a track that has really slowed down, really slick, you know, really flat track, I know I can take that spring rubber out and soften it up. So that's why. So right now, I don't have the jack down. I'm just running the spring down is all I'm doing. And buddy, I'm gonna tell you, the time I get it run down, that little old Hyperco 750 right there, she's gonna be smushed up pretty darn good. That's okay. We're gonna run her down and get her that 14 3/4 that I had it, which is just about where this sucker bottomed out, is where that is. Yep. Okay. So like I'm at 1,387 pounds. Now let me run this jack down and get her back where she was. But she's coming up now. Now, I'm gonna quit right there. So I got 2,100 pounds at it, and 14 3/4 of an inch, heim to heim, and she is deep in the rubber. I still got some coil. Left, you know, in here, in between them. There's a little bit of room. And I should have, she'll be close to getting in the shop, but she shouldn't get in the shop. It ain't a whole lot of room. I can do, the next design, I think I can do better than this. But boy, you talk about camber gain. See how much camber this thing's gonna have in it. Daggone. I set it up at like 5 degrees. I'm a little less camber to start with, but then gains more. Let me get a measurement here right quick. Let's see where our camber gain is over the entire bump range. Let's see. All right, that's 76 right there. Y'all remember that. I'm fixing to, I'm gonna pull, I got my number now, I got this set, so I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna drop it back down to ride height. And we'll see how much gain we've got on camber with this setup. Let's see, 84. So if we said 8 degrees of camber gain over a 4 3/4 inch of compression, that's like over 1.5 degrees of camber gain per inch of compression. That's good. I'm happy with that. Because like anything over 1 degree of camber gain per inch of compression, and that's golden, that's great. So like we're over 1.5 degrees, so it's very happy. What does that mean for me? Probably don't have to run as much static camber on the right front, because the car is going to be down. I got a tie down shock on the right front. It's going to be down a certain amount below ride height all the time on a track when we get up and going. So like, you know, 5 or 6 degrees of negative camber, which should be all I need, because on the track it's going to be 6, 7, 8, even down the straightaway, and then rolling, you know, on up to 10 or 11 degrees, you know, in the turn, without issue at all. So I shouldn't have to run 7 or 8 degrees of camber, you know, in setup sitting here in the shop, because we got a great gain curve now going on. So happy with that. You can see I got the front cap back on the car. I had to just thrash all night. I was out here in the shop till like 1 a.m. because it's race day and I've got to get ready to go. So I've got it all bolted back together and stuff. I have got to get this car back on the scales and all the tires prepped and stuff and ready to go, because we're going to Clay Hill at Atwood, Tennessee tonight, and I want to be able to video that and show y'all like what the difference is and whether it helps the car or hurts the car, because that's what we're trying to do here on Dirt Race Life. Just show you real world how this stuff works. But I owe y'all something. So if you'll recall, if you was following me at the Street Stock Nationals, I got real disappointed in the paper Wicks air filters. They were just letting dust go right through, and I was like, this is crazy. And so I had a backup. I had a clean K&N oiled air filter that I don't run these anymore, but I keep it as a spare. And so I threw it on the car and finished up, had everything cleaned back off. All of it was perfectly clean. Well, when I got the car back in the shop, before I did anything, I turned on the camera, took it off so we could look together to see the exact difference. So check this out. I have not took this off. Y'all saw me, I put a fresh K&N, freshly oiled and fresh grease on the actual air cleaner and everything to pick up any dirt that was getting through. And I am going to, and I've got an O-ring, by the way, on that. There's no dirt in behind that. And I am going to pull it off, and we are going to look together. I swear, I have not looked. But, yeah, y'all. And so if you saw that other one, you know how much dirt there was. I could take my finger and just do that, and there was just dirt all over my finger. She's clean. You see where I wiped that thin layer of grease? And the thin layer of grease, somebody asked me like, well, is that actually going to catch dirt and keep it from coming into the carburetor and down into the engine? It's not. But what it is it's like your indicator. It's like your canary in a mine. Because if I put some grease on here, then if dirt is getting through, you're going to pick it up. This is going to turn brown, and you're going to have a layer of dirt. And look, I put red. That's that red Lucas red and tacky. And that's all it is just that red and tacky. And I ran 2 more nights. I think I had run 2 nights on the paper Wix filter, and I pulled it off. I had dirt all over everything. This was just solid brown all the way around. It had like a layer of dust that like if you took the grease and just poured a layer of dust, that's what it was like. It was terrible. And then we went 2 more nights, and I got nothing. And so that is just, you know, that's just an oiled filter. You know, that's that K&N old filter. You know, which I had gotten away from these, and people are like, oh, these things are so restrictive and everything. It may be very restrictive. I'm not saying that's not restrictive. Because everybody was saying, hey, go to a paper filter. It will do great. Run it like 3 races. Yada, yada, yada. It'll be your best horsepower. Well, it ain't worth a snot if it's running all that dirt through your engine. But anyway, a little bit off subject, but I wanted to go ahead and knock that out because I had some people that were wearing me out. They were like, okay, what was the results? Well, there you go. So the K&N works. All right, so definitely better than the paper Wix filter, but performance-wise, you know, I don't know. Like on the dyno, like there's people showing that the paper filter is just outperforming everything on the dyno, and the Wix is like the most restrictive. So I protected the engine, but I may be taking power away. Well, going to keep the K&N right here as far as for a backup and stuff, but a lot of y'all, I'm paying attention to them comments, y'all. A lot of y'all were like, it's worth the money, spend it, Jason, you know, get the walker. So I got the walker, and you see, I've already put the outerwears on it, and I didn't realize I'm gonna have to order a different outerwears, which this one was wore out anyway, because look where I had to cut it and zip tie it. Because this walker that's for a 14-inch base comes out another inch. It's actually 15 inches. For this walker, and this is the one that you oil, and I had like a gallon jug of K&N oil, so it wasn't a problem. I oiled it up, which makes it so it's kind of purple now instead of just being blue. But anyway, I had to cut my outerwears and throw it on. I got to order me like a 15-inch instead of a 14-inch outerwears for it, and that's cool. But we're going to try it out, because my understanding is that the walker is giving you that type of performance of an oiled filter, but flows much better. Had several people tell me like, yeah, this one, even on the dyno, shows up like it is much better than this one and gives you that type of protection. So I just wanted to show you what was going on there. I ain't trying to keep nothing from y'all, folks. We're going to get the car ready to go to the track. We're going to video all that. Stay tuned for the next video. You can see exactly the difference it makes in this car. I hope it's a good difference. Y'all stay tuned.